Does astrology say anything about your skin color or ethnicity? Can it shed any light on the Hindu caste system or social classes in general? What does astrology have to say about bigotry? When it comes to explosive topics, this one definitely fits the bill, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be discussed, quite the opposite. If we don't discuss it, it won't go away. It will just fester like an open wound. More importantly, there is quite a bit to discuss because astrology does have quite a bit to say about both race and class. In fact, it would probably be better to start with class because it has a direct relationship to how race is portrayed in the eyes of astrology. You see, no matter how much you would like to ignore it or say that it is simply a vestige of the past, the classification by caste, as is customary in the traditional Hindu system, is very much a big part of Vedic astrology and of nakshatras in particular. In fact, it is one of the most vital elements when it comes to understanding how each nakshatra operates and manifests in one life. It is also extremely valuable in understanding how a person thinks and acts because the castes, as they are represented in nakshatras, are not merely the social hierarchy but rather the train of thought or the way a person interacts with complex situations. For example, if we take a warrior or a butcher, they are far less likely to be squeamish about violence than the laborer or the merchant nakshatras. So it has a direct relationship to how a person thinks and who he is. But notice how I have referred to how an individual interacts with the world, not how the group he is born into is represented in that world. That's a very important distinction because the nakshatra caste refers to one's moon nakshatra, not to the nakshatra of the second house lord or of the sun. Now, this distinction shows that in astrology, the caste system refers to the individual, not to the caste he was born into. It is not represented as a hereditary trait. It is represented as a personality trait. This actually goes against the traditional view of the caste system and its implementation in India. In fact, it is the very antithesis of the caste system itself, because again, it shows that it is the individual, not the group or the heritage, that is responsible for determining caste. Now, if you wish to criticize this viewpoint, go right ahead, but do remember that the culture that created the caste system itself is the very same culture that created that very distinction in astrology. Now, among the caste system mentioned in the nakshatras, you will find the foreigner caste. And that brings us back to the question of race and ethnicity, because it seems that there is a huge astrological emphasis on whether someone will live in his own culture and follow its traditions, or he will travel abroad or live by different cultural norms. That can actually be seen by the influence of Rahu, especially on the ninth house or on the second house, because those represent the traditional values of both the society and of the family one is born into. And one also should look at the position of Jupiter to see how significant those values are in one's life. Another thing to note is that the influence of Rahu on the second or the seventh houses does show marriage to a person from a different culture or a different ethnicity. So again, you see that there is an emphasis on culture and ethnicity, but not in a discriminatory way as such, just as it is what it is. A more interesting observation is that each of the planets in Vedic astrology represents a different skin color, or more precisely, its influence is usually seen as producing a different skin color. Now, the lighter tones are usually attributed to the Moon, Mercury, and Jupiter. Darker skin tones can be seen through Saturn, Ketu, and to a lesser degree, Rahu. But when it comes to the Sun, Mars, and Venus, these represent someone who is rather tan and maybe slightly darker or average when compared to the rest of his ethnic group. Now, this would apply both to Europeans, Indians, Africans. It doesn't actually matter in terms of the ethnic group itself, as it is relative to the rest of the group. Now, normally these distinctions apply only when comparing the individual to his relatives and his ethnic group in general. But that is not the whole story, because if you look at a multiracial society, then you will find that these distinctions manifest themselves directly in one's appearance when compared to the society as a whole. An interesting example of this would be Barack Obama, who has both Saturn and Jupiter on his ascendant. You see, on the one hand, he is darker in skin tone than the majority population of his country, yet at the same time he is identified as black, but he is lighter in skin tone than most other blacks. That is something that astrology is pretty good at. It shows you the distinction when compared to your surroundings, far more so than as compared to the world in general. But the most important thing to consider would be that in the hierarchy of planets, the Sun is the king, yet when it comes to skin color, it doesn't sit at either extreme, but right in the middle, in the average. This is a perfect representation of the fact that nature itself doesn't like extremes. It prefers flexibility. And that brings us to the last topic, that of bigotry. You see, there is quite an easy way to see bigotry in someone's chart. It is the affliction of Jupiter, usually by either Saturn, Mars, or Ketu. In the cases of Mars and Ketu, you will see extreme viewpoints. In the case of Saturn afflicting Jupiter, you will see narrow-mindedness and too strict of an application of ideology. That is why Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn, the structured, narrow-minded sign of Saturn. Interestingly, the classical definition of Guru Chandal Yoga is the affliction of Jupiter by any of the malefics. Yet today we consider only Rahu as creating the Guru Chandal Yoga. But Rahu in fact only creates heterodoxy, unusual or unorthodox viewpoints, while the other three, as you have seen before, are the ones who create extreme viewpoints. I hope you found this video useful. Please like and subscribe, and if you wish to learn more about medical astrology, please check out my website. You will find the link below. Thank you.